Welcome back for another episode of the Fourth and Long-Winded Podcast. My name's Dan.
And I'm Cody.
Welcome in. Today, we're going to talk about this past weekend in the FCS, and we're also going to get into Jim Harbaugh and Michigan and a situation there. Cody sits on one side of it. I think I kind of sit on another side of it, so it should be an interesting discussion.
I'm pretty excited for the conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. But first, I want to touch on a couple news topics from this past week. So the first one was the team of the sweatshirt that you're wearing right now. It's got a transfer quarterback from Texas Tech. Sorry, almost made that mistake. He threw for 1,600 yards last year, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Not too exciting. We're going to get into Michigan later. I don't know if you want to say anything about this right now, Cody, but.
So I have some remarks on transfer quarterbacks.
We could save that for the Michigan.
Yeah, let's go ahead and save that for the.
All right, we'll just save more Michigan talk later. Another topic that came out: Alabama. They're shooting for full capacity at Bryant-Denny Stadium in the fall. I feel pretty optimistic that they're probably going to be able to do it. So that'll be cool.
I mean, Texas will, so there's no doubt that Alabama will.
There's very little chance. And the Pac-12 was the final conference to release their schedule for the fall. They're doing a full 9-game schedule. I don't know if you took a peek at any of the games, but I think there's, in the non-conference at least, there's like Oregon, Ohio State. I know personally Purdue's going to be playing Oregon State, but there's a couple.
I did see one with the Pac-12 schedule that I thought was just like kind of interesting is that Stanford will be like I don't know when the last time it happened. It's happened before, but it's like since like 2005 or something like that. They're the first school to play all Power 5 opponents
in their non-conference.
Or
just like I guess in their
they'll be playing a full 12 Power 5.
That's interesting.
Schedule. The first team in a long time.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, so that was all the news topics. So let's get into the FCS weekend review. So down goes North Dakota State in the very first weekend of our podcast. And you know what? Dan's a genius. So why don't we move right along on to the rest of the FCS and just completely ignore North Dakota State whatsoever. So
I actually want to touch on that just for a minute.
Oh, come on. I already look like an idiot.
So actually, I think that your take potentially could still be right. I think they could.
I mean, it could.
So here's my thought. Do you remember it was, I don't remember what year ago it was in the NCAA basketball tournament. It was Gonzaga rolling up to the tournament, having won like 1.5 million games, and they look like they're the team to beat, right?
Yeah.
But they had actually played nobody.
I mean, that's Gonzaga every year.
Like normal. And then they got beaten like the second round.
Yeah.
So I have this
That's
theory.
usually how it goes for Gonzaga.
I have this theory that really, really, really good teams have to get beat once.
Okay. I mean, I feel like you can make a decent argument if you go through and pick out throughout history of just any sport. Like you're not talking about just one sport or another. You're just
I'm not
just talking about college football.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, like there are traditionally really great teams, all-time great teams that didn't lose, like LSU in 2019.
Yeah, but I guess those are fewer and far between.
Exactly.
It's a lot less undefeated.
Look at some of Saban's national championship teams. They had a loss,
good point.
Humbled them, and brought them to where they were.
Very good point. You know what? I'm back in. I'm sticking with my take. North Dakota State's winning. They're winning the national championship.
Madison, but
I'm back in. Nope, it's the Bison. The Bison roll on from here. Even though their offense looked terrible, they scored. They didn't even get over midfield until 2 minutes. It was like it was past the 2-minute warning in the first half, and that's the first time they crossed it. Oh, it was terrible.
So you want to hear something kind of interesting about that?
Go ahead.
In their conference, University of Notre Dame, or not Notre Dame, University of North Dakota, South Dakota, and Missouri State were all picked to finish last three in the conference. They're leading the conference currently.
That's great.
2020 is still alive.
Just for some numbers, 11 of the top 25 teams lost this past weekend.
Chaos.
And I think there was like 5 of them that were 5 of the top 25 that were not even playing this weekend. So like over half of the ranked teams that played this weekend lost.
Yeah, you had North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Illinois State, Furman, Eastern Washington, they all lost.
Wofford.
Oh, yeah. That's how
Furman. Yeah, you already said Furman. Yeah. It's like I think it was like 9 of 11 of them lost to unranked opponents too. Like, so like it wasn't like it was losing to another ranked team.
The year of the underdog.
It's the year of the underdog. Spring FCS should be a thing. It's for the underdogs.
We're going to keep advocating for that.
100%. Every episode is going to be mentioned at least once. But James Madison, your pick,
yep.
they are in pole position now. James Madison, they're going to be the number 1 team in the country now that North Dakota State's lost. But so your pick's looking good. Mine is not at the moment. So we'll keep you up to date.
I only think they're going to fall to 2. So
yeah, probably. It was just. It was a weird weekend. 11 of the top 25.
I can't see them falling. I mean, they lost to Southern Illinois, right?
Yeah.
The
Salukis. Something like that.
FCS football, we don't have to be right.
FCS football, I'm just in it for the entertainment and the craziness and the madness, and we've already got it. It's delivered so far. I don't know if
we're gonna have 2 springtime tournaments this year. We're gonna get March Madness.
Purdue was just bumped up, so now they're projected to be a 4 seed. We're playing well. I'm looking forward to the basketball tournament. I get 100% into that, so definitely excited for that. Maybe we make a little one-off college basketball tournament preview episode.
I think I would like to do that. Yeah, that sounds
just
fun.
like a one-off.
We're a college sports podcast now.
Okay, all right, we changed it right now.
2 episodes in. All right, so now I kind of want to go into what I'm really excited to talk about is Jim Harbaugh and Michigan and the situation there and what's going on. So I kind of want Tid to let you start and maybe give your opinion, just like answering the question, has he been successful?
Okay, so we got to define what successful is, because he does have 3 10-win seasons. He's only got the 1 losing season from this weird pandemic fall season, which 2-4 is still not great. I mean, probably no home win. That's not good. But it's Michigan, right?
Right.
Like, they're supposed to be in the same breadth of Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, like USC, all these programs. And like, what's the difference between Michigan and USC right now? Like, they're both kind of like they'll have a couple good seasons, and then they'll have an 8-5, or they'll have a 9-4, and you're like, well, what the hell happened that year? And Harbaugh is kind of known as this quarterback whisperer, right? Like, he's good with the quarterback. He's got that reputation because of Andrew Luck. But I don't know, in hindsight, maybe that was the exception and not the rule. Maybe because Andrew Luck was so fantastic and great, he didn't really need to be coached. He was going to be great no matter what. I think he went on to kind of prove that in the NFL. He was going to be great no matter what. But you look at basically his entire Michigan tenure, it's been a different quarterback every year for the most part. Always a new guy coming in, never seeming successful. So I'll let you kind of rebuttal. I still got a little bit more. That's just a little bit for right now.
So So from my perspective, and I'm probably one of the few Michigan fans that still supports Jim Harbaugh. I see his faults, and I think he has plenty of them. That being said, my main point is if we fire him, who are we going to get to replace him?
I mean, there's always 5 to 10
yes.
hot name coordinators every offseason that are moving.
But like, I'm of the opinion that to lead a big name program, I want you to have had some head coaching experience. So well,
there's always up and coming head coaching candidates.
I get it. I mean, but I don't see anyone outside. There's two names that I could see being a good fit at Michigan. We can get into that later. But I don't. So we're going to fire him. We're going to spend a dick ton of money to fire him. Right? Yeah,
that was the most irresponsible decision I have ever seen. Signing him to a 5-year extension at this point.
I could 3-year extension.
I was going to say 2, but I'm okay with 3 too.
I would have signed him to a 3-year extension. So I'm not super happy about the 5-year extension, but I'm not upset about it, because if he goes on and has another 2, 3, 10-win seasons, I'm not upset.
Really?
I'm really not. And the reason for that.
What if he doesn't beat Ohio State?
Oh yeah, he has to beat Ohio State. He absolutely he has to beat Ohio State this year.
He hasn't done that yet.
I know.
That's what
he has to beat Ohio State this year.
That's what Michigan fans say every year, that he's got to beat him this year.
Okay, yeah, Michigan fans say that every year, but I haven't said that every year. My severe hope has been that he's going to beat Ohio State, but I've never been like, this is a must-win for him. This year, if he does not beat Ohio State, I'm going to be in the group of people that's saying, let's fire his ass. That's the way I feel. He could lose the rest of the games. He just needs to beat Ohio State.
1-11.
1-11 and beat Ohio State, and I'm going to be cool. I don't think that Michigan.
I honestly think the majority of Michigan fans would be okay with that.
I know they would be. They absolutely would be, because then every time that they come down to Toledo to see their cousin,
they can actually start to come into Ohio.
Yeah, they can start to come down to Ohio. Exactly. Like, you used to see Michigan flags everywhere in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
You don't see them anymore because they can't win.
No.
And I think that speaks to the talent gap that Ohio State has on the rest of the Big Ten in general. They've just figured it out. They figured out recruiting. You can't win against a team consistently if they literally have every player on the field that is better than you.
Yeah.
And so that's a complaint for Jim Harbaugh. My main point, all of my points is, and I understand all of the statistical detractions from Jim Harbaugh. I just really believe my philosophy, if I was an athletic director, is while you have to listen to your fans and you have to listen to these boosters, I think way too often we have coaches being fired and teams never getting better. I mean, you look at Kansas.
Kansas is. I think Kansas is a bad example for this.
Is it though? Because
Kansas has always been bad.
I mean, the 2012 season.
Okay, that's 1 year in the past a million.
Then they fired the coach.
Even Les Miles, the Mad Hatter, can't do anything there. Like, Kansas is just a cursed football program.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm just saying there's so many programs where we fired a coach and it's not really helped.
But there's also
look at Texas. They're on their third guy since Mac Brown. It's like, oh, Texas is back. Texas is back, and they're never back.
Do you really think if they would have just kept Mac Brown and kept on going, that they'd be better even where they are now?
I mean, North Carolina is pretty fucking good.
That's a good point.
They can compete for the ACC, which means they can compete to make the playoff. Like, I don't think that they're there. I don't think that they're good enough to win the ACC, but shit, if they slip up against Clemson and then they get lucky, yeah, they could win the ACC. And I don't think that that's necessarily at Texas. Do I think Mac Brown would have won another national championship? Not necessarily. But I also think that we are way too quick to say, okay, we're just going to fire him and start over. We're just going to fire him and start over. How many
I can agree with that.
Hmm?
I can agree with that.
Like, what is the threshold? Because not everyone can win a national championship. In fact, only one team gets to win one every year. So what do you want? Do you want a consistently good program that sometimes you're going to have a memorable year that you're going to be able to compete for a national championship? Because if that's what you want and that sounds good to you, I think that's what Jim Harbaugh delivers to Michigan. It's a consistently good program that you're going to beat the majority of your opponents. You're going to always be able to be rooting for them, always in games.
This year, I just have a different. That's just settling to me. I don't see Michigan as a school that settles. Like, they're supposed to. I don't know. I just don't agree with that whole mindset of just being okay with having. I'm not saying being okay. So your ceiling every year is 10 wins. Like, that is your absolute ceiling. He's gotten 10 wins 3 times, and you might make a good, decent bowl game. I think he made 1 Orange Bowl. That's like the only big New Year's Six, what they call them now, game that he made it to. He made a couple Citrus Bowls. He got blown out in most of them. He's 1-4 in bowl games as well. So it's not like he's winning. He's losing to Ohio State, but he's also going and beating these teams in these bowl games. I just don't. I don't know, man. I don't think.
No, I get what you're saying, and no, I don't want them to be mediocre. But I don't think 10 wins is mediocre. I think 10 wins is something that Purdue would literally pay millions and millions of dollars for.
Okay, you're just striking it right in the heart right now. But thank you.
But most teams, I mean, think about it. Like if.
But Michigan isn't most teams, and I think that's just the main point I'm making. Is Michigan? I guess we just have to decrease our. So you're saying you're just going to decrease the expectation for Michigan. You're no longer going to view it at Michigan as this great school. They need to be competing on the national level, like literally at the top, and they should be consistently a top 10 team just about year in, year out. Like,
I mean, I still think they should be a top 10 team.
But see, then you're in contention for a national championship, and that's not what they've been. They've not, other than 1 year where they started out 10-1, and then they got blown.
What's the real difference between Oklahoma and Michigan? Like, think
Oklahoma
about
is the best of their conference.
Huh?
I think Oklahoma right now has a lot more. What's the word? Prestige right now.
Like a lot more star power.
Star power.
The conference is
notoriety. Notoriety is the word I was looking for. Like, they've been in the playoff. They've had Heisman winners. They've had Heisman winners is another big thing. Like, Michigan has had not Jabril Peppers. Jake Butt sticks out in my mind just because his name was Jake Butt, but he was also like a really good tight end. But who are like the star players? Michigan, I understand on the defensive side of the ball because they've had national title playoff level defenses at times over this past stretch.
Yeah.
But the offense has always brought them down.
And
offense is what Harbaugh is known for.
I would agree with you there. And I think Michigan should be reaching for the national championship picture. But I also think that you get into this mindset that it's win a national championship now. And I don't think the national championship is the only thing that should matter.
But it's been like 7 years now. It's not like he's just starting.
I know. The team itself is in a significantly better shape than it was when Brett or whatever his name was.
Brady Hoke.
Yeah, Brady Hoke.
Brady Hoke won the Coach of the Year in 2011. Like, I think we kind of wasn't great, but I think we kind of give Brady Hoke a bad rep. It was really like Rich Rodriguez before that. Like that was pretty disastrous.
Yeah. I mean, but the floor was really low. And I think
floor, I mean, if anything, I know it was pandemic season, but they still went 2-4 and they still were not very good.
Okay.
If this is a sign of things to come, like if they start this next season out 1-3, it's panic time. Like it's like, wow, we shouldn't have given him this 5-year contract. I'm not completely sold that he should have been fired this offseason. Like he shouldn't have been. I'm not fully that far in on this. I fully disagree with giving him a 5-year contract. I think that is just.
I completely agree with you. I would have done 3 years because you can always swallow it for 1 year, 2 years. But then
then you're also giving him that comfort knowing that I don't really have to do anything. Maybe give him a 1 or 2 year deal. Say, all right, you know what? Well, you've been here for 7 years. Let's put some pressure on you. Let's see something.
I don't know that works for him. Like I don't know.
I guess that's not really a college football idea either. That's more of an NFL thing, I think.
Yeah, that's an NFL thing. Like that's not college football. Because he's made his money. He's at Michigan because he wants to be at Michigan, not because he needs the money. He is like the 3rd or 4th highest paid coach, and they have. He was
initially the richest.
They have the money to fire him. If they wanted to fire him today and null that 5-year contract, they could do it because Michigan has some very wealthy alumni. They don't want to do it because Michigan is also a bunch of penny pinchers.
Yeah.
But I think so. If we're talking, all right. So here's my thing. Thinking about Michigan, yes, Michigan should be one of the great historical programs. But think about the great historic program or the great programs right now. What do they all have in common outside of Notre Dame?
Outside of Notre Dame,
we're talking Notre Dame, we're talking Clemson, we're talking Alabama, we're talking Ohio State, Oklahoma. That's the great teams right now.
Georgia.
Florida, maybe. Florida's like kind of there.
No, I wouldn't put Florida in
there. No. All right. So those are the really good teams right now. But what do all of those besides Notre Dame have in common?
They're in a conference?
No, they have really bad academic standards.
Oh. That's a good point. Michigan does have really high.
Michigan has really high academic standards. And so if you want
they still have top recruiting classes every year. It's not like they're not getting good recruiting classes.
But they can't draw in the guys that Ohio State can because those guys can't make the grades. Like you can't tell me that beating Ohio State is important to you. Okay, that's fine. Then lower the grade point average that you need to be on the team. Because if you want to beat Ohio State, that's what you got to do.
That's funny.
I just don't see Matt Campbell coming in here and saying, "All right, let's build this team." And Matt Campbell's a great coach. He's a great team builder. He really that's something that he does. He's done it everywhere he's been. But I don't believe that he's going to make that big of a difference at Michigan. I don't believe that you're going to be able to have Dave Clawson come from Wake Forest and make that difference. Because guess what? Dave Clawson has done very well for Wake Forest, but that's Wake Forest. They have high academic standards, and the fact that they're winning 3 games a year is incredible because they shouldn't be. But I don't think that he makes that difference at Michigan. I don't think that I don't think there's any coach out there that's going to take Michigan and take them up higher than what Jim Harbaugh has at the current academic standpoint. I don't know how you do it.
Do you think Brian Kelly is that much better of a coach than Jim Harbaugh?
I think that Notre Dame has the benefit of having been not in a conference.
How so? I feel like not being in a conference kind of hurts them at times.
I don't.
Especially now with the playoff and needing that extra game.
Without being in a conference. And, I mean, they were a BCS team, which means that, every conference and them, they were always, included in that conversation. They have their own TV contract. They have a lot more money than anybody else.
I don't know.
I mean, but, not to say that Brian Kelly's that much better of a coach, but shit, he is a very good coach.
It's not like Notre Dame has just an infinitely or that much more resources available to them or money available to them than Michigan. You say like Michigan still has a lot of money. Like you said, they've got very wealthy alumni.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like it should be there's that much of a gap where Michigan, they're in the top 25. Like Notre Dame's pretty consistently been in that playoff conversation over the last 7 years since the playoffs started.
Season.
But that's a good point.
I mean, my point is not that Jim Harbaugh should be there forever. Because, yes, if you have national championship hopes, you need to fire him eventually. You need to get rid of him, or he needs to leave. That is something that if he's not able to do that, yes, you need to do it. But I also think that we're too quick to do it. I think 6-7 years is time to prove that you can do it.
Okay. I don't know.
I mean, we're just not going to agree.
We're definitely not going to come anywhere close on this.
But at least we can kind of understand each other's arguments.
I come back a little bit from I don't even know why he got the contract extension. I can understand contract extension, but I guess I'm kind of still in that NFL mindset where I was like, why don't you just give him a 1 or 2 year deal and say, hey, put some pressure on him. Like, hey, we need to see two consistent great years. Like, we need to be in the playoff hunt. It's not like the recruiting classes have gone down at all. He's still recruiting really well.
I really think recruiting would have fallen off if they wouldn't have given him at least 3 years.
Yeah, that's a good point. See, but that's going back to the saying it's a bad idea just because it's an NFL thing and not a college football thing. Yeah. You don't have to worry about recruiting.
I still have some complaints about Jim Harbaugh, so I'm gonna say some of those. My main one is he hasn't beat Ohio State. It's bad that he has not beat Ohio State. It needs to happen. And the fan base can't take much more of them not beating Ohio State, especially considering just this millennium, Michigan has not been good against Ohio State.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since they were competing regularly with Ohio State.
Like, even like since they've been kind of like on the same
Ohio
level.
State twice since 2000.
Yeah.
And that's embarrassing.
0 when's the last time they did it? I don't know that off the top of my head. I know Harbaugh hasn't done it, so it's at least 7 years.
I don't know the exact term.
I'm
gonna look it up. It's like 3,000 some odd days because all those annoying ass Ohio State fans are like always retweeting that account. It was like, how many days since Michigan beat Ohio State? Like, the fucking Ohio State fans.
I did have one thing, kind of like an idea on how they could get better.
Okay.
Is I think we can both agree the reason that they haven't been playoff potential great is because they have had no offense the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Their defense is the reason that they're as good as they are.
Yeah.
At least until last year, and that's what led to their defensive coordinator getting fired. But
dirt bike offense.
Should Harbaugh look into going the route of like Nick Saban, where Nick Saban kind of brings in these offensive coordinators, these like 1 or 2 year guys, like hired gun types, like Steve Sarkisian and like Lane Kiffin, like, and get these guys to just run his offense for a couple of years and maybe take his hands off the steering wheel a little bit and maybe be more of a head coach instead of an offensive coordinator and head coach. I don't know.
I'd love to see that happen. I think that is something that he's made some changes at the coordinator level, but he's such a control freak that he doesn't want to give up that control, and it's obviously not working. Whatever he's doing isn't working.
Yeah,
and
you gotta hope I think we can agree on, you got to hope within the next year or two, you've got to see some improvement. Like there's got to be some improvement. There's got to be some change.
And I truthfully believe, I'm saying this now, and I don't think I'm going to regret these words. If he doesn't beat Ohio State at least once in the next 2 years, I don't think he's the coach after. It's not. Because if he's not going to beat Ohio State, he's not competing for the Big Ten, and he's not competing for a national championship.
Absolutely not. That's been that blockade. That's Ohio State's been the blockade at the end of the season every single year. That's like the year that Michigan was 10-1.
Revenge tour.
Yeah, going in 10-1 into the Ohio State game, and
fourth, right?
Yeah, they were favored over Ohio State, and I think they ended up losing like 62-30 something. I don't know.
I remember I listened to that game on the radio on my way driving home from Michigan. I was driving home after things.
I think if I had to summarize the Harbaugh tenure so far, it's just been extremely disappointing.
Yeah.
Like if I did actually end up going back and trying to look at some of what the initial reaction was.
Oh, it was incredible. It was everyone was so excited. And I wasn't even really a Michigan fan at that point.
Yeah.
I was still really more of a Cincinnati guy. I hadn't developed a hatred for Ohio State. I mean, I hated them, but not in the way that I hate them now. That being said, it was, I remember watching the press conference and seeing the reaction, and everyone's like, man, this is going to change Michigan football.
Yeah.
This is going to be the way to bring Michigan back into the promised land that is consistent Big Ten winners. And by all means, it should have been.
I mean, it was compared at the time to Nick Saban being hired at Alabama. That's what people thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and the thing is, Nick Saban being hired at Alabama was a big deal, but to me, it wasn't that big of a deal. Because Chip Kelly coached at in the NFL for a few years, and
Eagles and 49ers,
and he didn't do well because the NFL is just different than college. And then he got hired at UCLA, and everyone's like, oh wow, UCLA is going to be competing for Pac-12 titles, and we haven't seen that.
They've steadily improved. They're a lot better than they were when he first got there. I'll give them that. Okay,
yeah, that's fair. But they're another team. They're another team that they fired a head coach, and they've been mediocre ever since.
Which one? Mora?
2009, yeah.
Jim Mora?
Yeah. Yes.
He's the Falcons coach. I remember that.
Yep. Yeah, so I don't know. I do think there – I have one more point.
Okay.
He needs to – while I am happy that gentleman from Texas Tech decided to transfer to the University of Michigan, needs to stop bringing transfer quarterbacks. Develop a fucking quarterback.
He hasn't had one stay for 4 years.
You're the quarterback whisperer. Joe Milton transferred out.
Yeah. He was there for one season. Joe Milton's like, all right, I might go to – oh, nope, I'm out of here.
He's like, I'm going to have fun running the dirt bike offense into a ditch.
It's just terrible offense. It's
like if you don't have these kids that are in there 4 years, they don't understand the culture that he's trying to build. They're not going to lead these kids. I mean, unless you've got just truthfully a great leader, which no one that he's had transfer in has been.
And it's hard to be a leader when you're just coming in from another school and you're just dropped in, and you're all right. You're the starting quarterback. You're the head of the team.
And it's it almost feels like as if he feels the pressure, that people are unhappy with him, and so he's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get this splashy quarterback, and that's gonna fix all my problems." And it doesn't. That
just screams Shea Patterson to me. You remember when Shea Patterson?
Yes.
When he transferred there.
Excited for that.
Everybody on Twitter was. Everybody who was a Michigan fan, for the most part, I remember the reaction being, oh my God, Shea Parrish is going to change. He's finally, we got a good quarterback. And I don't know, it's just never worked out. And it's always for 1 year. And then, okay, you go into every season. It's like, all right, who's the Michigan quarterback going to be this year? It's always somebody different. It's always, oh, this guy transferred from somewhere.
Honestly, it reminds me a little bit of the problems that Notre Dame has had.
They've had some more stability.
They've had more stability, but like I can't name a quarterback from Notre Dame. I couldn't even name the one from this past year, and they were very good this past year.
Ian Book. Yeah, he took over for Brandon Wimbush, who
I can recognize the names, but like.
But yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's had better quarterback play than Michigan has.
No, they have. I mean, they have. But I would argue that like they have had a similar problem in that they can't.
I wouldn't put it on the same level.
Consistent guy. I mean, Ian Book was there for a while though, so yeah. We can dive into that at a different point in time.
Yeah, I don't have really anything else on Harbaugh. I guess my final thing is you better beat Ohio State sometime in the next 2 years, or you're done.
Yeah,
that's what I
absolutely agree. Well, all right. I guess that wraps up our conversation, everyone. I want to thank you for listening, and would really appreciate it if you'd leave a comment down in the YouTube comments and like and subscribe to us on Spotify or whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. We'd really appreciate it.
Tweet at us. Follow us on Twitter.